Good evening and a warm welcome to our Curated Cribs. I'm Cindy Peterson, the Executive Director at the Talbot Museum of Art in Roanoke, Virginia. As we start this Curated Cribs evening, I would love to introduce our artist, Julie Speed, as we are going to tour her studio in Marfa, Texas. After dropping out of Rhode Island School of Design at age 19, Julie spent her 20s moving around the U.S. and Canada working pickup jobs like house painter, horse trainer, ad writer, farm worker, and other types of work until her 20s when she moved to Texas in 1978 and settled down and taught herself to paint. Julie switches back and forth regularly between oil painting, printmaking, collage, gouache, and drawing, often combining disciplines. Two large volumes of her work, Julie Speed, Paintings, Constructions, and Works on Paper, 2004, and Speed Art, 2003 to 2009, have been published by the University of Texas, and she lives and works in Marfa, Texas. In her words, "I keep hours just like a real job, only longer, and in my spare time, I read books, drink tequila, and garden." And we'll hear about that later as well. A solo exhibition of Julie's work, Julie Speed, East of the Sun and West of the Moon, was on view at the Talbot Museum of Art from August 31, 2019 to March 15, 2020. Featuring 29 works of exhibition, this explored Julie's work over the past 5 years, including select works previously unseen. And that is when I was able to meet Julie for the first time and work with her this past year. So it's wonderful to bring her back to be able to see this virtual exhibition of Dark Skies. Dr. Patrick Shaw Cable introduced the museum to Julie Speed to us and brought her exhibition. It was in the Modernism Gallery, Bank of America Gallery, and it was in our media lab. And, as we could see from your virtual exhibition, you also did that close-up room in that companion gallery that really was just so powerful. Also set to music, where we could sit in there and enjoy the up and close and then go into the gallery. So we thank you for bringing that to the Talbot Museum of Art and to the Roanoke community.
So what we're looking at is from the courtyard of the jail, which is my studio, and you're looking, that's Mexico down there, and you're looking through the Curated Foundation. The boxes out there you can see, that's Donald Judd's 15 untitled works in concrete. And then it's coming around. It's a kilometer long. I go walking there all the time. And here we're coming up to the jail. And what you're looking at on the right is the workshop. And then there's the main part of the jail. And we're walking in through the front door. And the jail, so the whole Curated Foundation, it's about 400 acres. And it was the base. It started out as a cavalry camp, just a camp out in the middle of nowhere. And the jails it's like the hoosegow for the fort. It was Fort D.A. Russell. First it was cavalry camp, then it was Fort D.A. Russell. And so here's so you're looking through the inside now. And the walls are like 15-inch poured concrete, and there's a concrete ceiling. So it's really, it's a great place to work. I've got about 4 different rooms where I work, and then there's a press room off to one side. We're not even going to try to go there tonight because there's sort of too much to go through. But so what had happened was the Army after World War II, they deaccessioned the base. And they sold off a few buildings one at a time. The jail was one of them, and they sold them to the Texas Land Bank. And so when we got it, it was the Texas Land Bank offices. So everything you're looking at there, it was like drop ceiling, the history of bad paneling. There was a big, where I was standing out there, there was a big parking lot with telephone poles. And so I've been gradually one room at a time getting it back from what it
And
was.
from what you had said, it was 2006 that you
Yeah.
moved to the studio, and about a year of renovation, but now, of course, continual kind of upgrades.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a work in progress. And so when Judd came in the 1970s, he bought everything else. So our place was sort of in the middle of the Chinati Foundation, and we are going to be, when I die, this studio will be a foundation, but a really small, cheap one. But hopefully there'll be enough money so we can have people come and spend time here and keep it open. Like right now, I do like have schools and private tours, and they come, and it's like, and then private people, just small groups at a time, and then twice a year I open up for a weekend. But when I die, it'll be open all the time.
Let's stop here and talk about this piece. And this was one, and of course, that we saw in the virtual tour. Give us a little bit more information on that piece.
Okay, that's Black Hole. And so all of my work, because it's representational, everybody always thinks, oh well, I must have an idea and then draw a picture of it. But it's actually backwards. I'm putting things together. I've got, so it starts with sort of everything, that with this thread I've been following my whole life, that there's some kind of math to the universe and things should be arranged. And it doesn't matter whether you call it art or whether it's in gardening or cooking, or whether you're just sitting in a room and you pull a chair out from the wall and everybody knows that feeling, well, this is the right spot and this is the wrong spot. And so with painting, that's kind of where I'm going, is I just, I'll start with only the vaguest of sketches, and then I keep going, and one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And because I live out here where, every night I go out and there's the Milky Way, and so you go, oh, here I am in my universe. Right? You can see through the side of the discs, and exactly where you are and exactly how small you are. And so this one's Black Hole.
And talk about your process as well in terms of collecting. You've collected since paper since you've been 18, and I was amazed of the story you told at the museum with the Hammerhead painting, where you knew exactly where that paper was that you wanted to implement.
Yeah, I was lucky that time that I could find it. Yeah, in before I always painted and collaged, and when I was a kid, my parents, it wasn't an art house. We didn't have art books or anything, but there was always like in the garage or in the basement, there was always a workbench with tools, and I could always put stuff together. And my dad repaired clocks, so I could steal pieces of his clocks, and I'd take stuff out of, the kitchen drawers that I could solder with. And there would always be pieces of wood or, something I could carve or solder together or glue together, so there was no line between what was art and what was not art. My mom made quilts, and then later she did ceramics and did through pots, and like my dad built stone walls. I built a stone wall out in front of the house, like a dry stack wall. And so it's like collage, only 3D. And when I cook with colors. So it's throwing stuff together. When I garden, and I did all the rock paths in the garden. So it's not like one thing is separate from the other. It's just, I have the pieces and then pick them up and start, and one idea leads to the other. If it was the other way around, right? If I had an idea and then I illustrated the idea, I've tried that before, but it doesn't really work. It always comes out ham-fisted or awkward, or I'm trying too hard. So I've got to kind of sneak up on it by using my eyes and my hands and trying to ignore my brain, because my brain is always like wants to be the boss, and it shouldn't be, because it's usually wrong.
Well, that's a good place to go to Thicket that we just stopped on, Julie, because that, I think, I love what you told about kind of that last implement of why you put in the garden shears. So that kind of goes into what you just explained.
So this one started out with a color problem. And so I try every once in a while to take colors that I don't like and see if I can work with them. So I put purple and coral and reds and I was experimenting with that, like trying to make these colors go together that I didn't like. And then at the same time, I had those pieces, like you can see in there's collage pieces. And then I was also, it must have been spring because I was pruning. And that year I'd gotten myself this really, it was 2 years ago, I think I got myself a really special pair of Japanese gardening pruning shears, so I could snip everything off really well. So I didn't start out, I started out with a color problem, and then it went from there to I was thinking about those canes and the shapes, and then I added in the birds, because where the roses that I was pruning, that's where the birds live, inside the roses. So I just kept going. In several of the paintings, you'll see collage pieces that are all from the same book. Like on the right-hand side of her vest, that's from a Gustav Doré Swedish Bible from like 1865 or 1867 or something, that I had friends that had a bookstore in Galveston that was they're totally flooded. And I bought this Bible. It was this huge Bible, and it was just in pieces in a big cardboard box, all in pieces. And but it had hundreds of illustrations, so I've been using them ever since. So you'll see that pieces from that in several of the paintings.
Well, and that weaves into most of your works, those that you've collected since you've been 18 books that have been damaged in some way by floods, just like you described here, or fire, and pieces from old maps, Bibles, as well as Japanese woodblock prints.
Right. So those are there's rules to so the collage. It's like a jigsaw puzzle game, and I have rules, and the first rule is I'm not allowed to wreck any good books, right? So and I'm not allowed to use the computer to blow anything up or down, because the minute I could use the computer, then the game becomes completely open-ended, and that would mean I'd go crazy because there would be too many possibilities. Plus, I'd spend more time on the computer, and that would be bad for my mental health. And so for years I drove around. I just like a couple of times a year drive up through Arkansas where there's a lot of junk stores, and drive out further west and just like buy paper from, and then people started giving me paper, or they'd tell me where I could get paper, or and then then on the internet I started to be able to get paper. So my studio is, every cupboard is completely stuffed. So the Japanese woodblock prints, can you see this?
Yes.
Right. Oh wait. Okay. Whoops. There. You can see. Can you see the holes in there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Those are wormholes. This is Kozo paper. That's what they printed on. It's this really strong, thin paper, but it's made out of mulberry tree bark, and so the worms eat it. And so I can buy the worm, the stuff that has the holes in it, because nobody wants it but me. And sometimes they would glue to try to repair it. They would glue, I don't know what this is, but it's another piece of rice paper that was glued onto the back of the painting to the back of the woodblock print. And then I can spray water on it and I can separate them out. And then I have two pieces of paper. And so this is one of the Dore Bible illustrations that I've cut a piece out of. And then this is an engraving of it's a photogravure. It's a polymer gravure process that I made from the Bible page. So I use that too. So when I do etchings, there'll be ones that are no good, and instead of throwing them away, I peel them back apart, and then I use the paper from that too. So everything has 2 or 3 purposes. Okay. So see the cormorant there? That's one of the fishing cormorants. They have cormorants that they're trained to fish. I thought that was pretty cool. And that was one of the first where I put in the stars, where I started painting stars, but I didn't really include it in dark skies, but it was hanging here. So you can see in this one, stop just a minute, okay? You can see in this one, so the Bible was the piece on the right of her vest, the woman on the right, her vest, you see it's a boat and it's in a flood. So that's a piece from, it's one of the illustrations of the biblical flood from the Bible that was killed in a flood. So I thought that was pretty. And then on the left hand sleeve, you see that's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This piece is called Chance.
And Julie, perhaps talk here about the use of the additional eye. And Sharon asked that question of, is it a reference to the mystical third eye, which allows her perception and input beyond what you see, or elaborate on your perspective on this?
Well, so there's about 5 different answers to that question, because right, because it depends on when I'm using it. Like you can see in this one, I'm using it so she's looking at you and kind of asking you, well, what do you think? Because see, so the woman's looking at the card. The woman on the right is she can see the card, and the woman on the left can't see the card. And she's got her fingers like this. You know how when you're playing blackjack, you go like, hit me or don't, right? So she's trying to decide, and she's looking at you, and so sometimes I use it for that, for like if I want to include the viewer say, what do you think about this? Sometimes I use it as a directional, like you'll see in some of the paintings, I'm actually making a line using the direction of the eyes, because we're not just prey animals, we're hunters. And so it's really, people really notice when someone else is looking. Like if I cast my eyes to the doorway, if I'm in a bar and I look at the door and start, everybody near me will do the same, because they will see, oh, there must be a threat from over there. So I'm using it like that way in a painting too, to say, look over there. So those are two of the reasons.
Well,
And then one of the other reasons is, I think that our ingrained assumptions are one of the most dangerous things about humans. We make assumptions that we think they're so close to their bread and the bone, and we think it's the truth. We don't understand that it's an assumption. And so when you look at someone with three eyes, it gives you this feeling sort of like a headache, but I've drawn it well. So your brain's like trying to make the adjustment. That's why when you look at it, that headachy feeling you get is your brain going, wait a minute, this isn't right. And it's the brain being caused to question its own assumptions, which I think is a good thing for us to do.
I agree. The brain, questioning our assumptions. That I love that, and I think as we go through when we went through the gallery at the museum, that happened to many of us. So thank you.
Good. All right. And
So,
I hope the headache wasn't too bad.
No, it was a positive thing. Positive. So we'll continue with the tour. And I know we'll see other examples of that where, again, those different perspectives or the different reasonings will come out.
And my great photography here. Sorry about the...
That's a great way to see your studio. I mean, if you think about, we are sitting in Roanoke or other places and visiting you in Marfa, Texas.
And there's this guy. So every night out here, you can, unless there's a full moon, you can see this guy. Oh, and then there's the little, I don't know what is the word for that? The Deux, Deux and Machina. It's like sort of the little person outside the story that comments on the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's looking out into the courtyard of the jail, out the window of the room where I work.
So you have some light coming in on this side.
Yeah. Well, in the other studio, I filmed it, I videoed it at night, because the camera couldn't adjust back and forth. So this is the working room. Those are a couple of the funny looking bird thing is something I'm working on. Those are some pieces from Dark Skies. I'm a little teapot. I was thinking of that. Remember when you were in kindergarten and I'm a little teapot, short and stout? Those are some guys I've kept around for years. That one's called Saint Etienne. That one's Marco Polo. And those maps I use, see the brown part there is a map, and I use that particular from that atlas. I found that it was another flooded thing, only that I got in a junk store in Laredo, and I used that. You'll see that in a lot of pieces. Mm-hmm. And then the rest, that's all painted. That's painted. And that was one of from A Purgatory of Nuns, which was
right. And that's some of your new works.
2019. Those are some I'm working on there. Mm-hmm. One of the 900 pairs of glasses that are keeping around the studio.
And one of the questions always comes up, Julie, is, as an artist, are you working on one project at a time, or are you working on multiple projects, and how does that work into your process?
I usually work on 3 things at once. If it's oil paintings, I'm working on 3 because I need the time to for the paint to dry. With the collages, I'm like, I'll be glue, so I glue things down and then put weights on them. They have to wait overnight. So that's when I just finished with the volcano and the cat. And it's just sitting out on the table because I leave them out, and then usually after a couple of weeks I start to see where my mistakes are, and I'll go back, which is good if I see them while they're still in the studio and before they get framed and before I sell them. I've had it happen before that I've framed a painting, shown a painting, sold a painting, and then gone over to someone's house and gone, oh no, that's all wrong, and had to take the painting back off the collector's wall and repaint it. And now I live way too far away from anywhere to do that. So I like to have lots of time to make sure I like them. Sometimes when I photograph them, that's when I realize where the mistake was. That's flyer. That's a gouache and collage together. That's a really old one of the boxes. So I do boxes a lot. I used to do a lot more constructions. Those are the geometric boxes there. Those are something I do for practice. I was talking about math before. So I'll get 3, like just for practice, I'll get 3 balls of different sizes and put them on a plane, and then arrange, and it's like wrong, and then right. This is the one I'm working on now. With that snake is now pink, because we have these pink racers there. I think I'm going to call it Death of a Salesman. So those are the 2 different kinds of gouache I use, and then the other table is the oil paintings.
And I see a number of images too. Is that part of your process for inspiration and taking a look at, pulling from different spaces?
Yeah, well, I use it a lot. So because I don't have models or anything, so if I get to a point in a painting like, oh, somebody's arm is up and I can't remember what the muscles in the armpit are like, and in the old days I had to get the mirror and try to look at my armpit in the mirror and then paint it at the same time. But now I can just go on Google and you can just Google armpit, and I get like 300 pictures of armpits, and at least one of them will be one that shows the muscle configuration. So those are the kind of those sketches there. That's about how far I get with sketches before I start painting. And that of, what's his name, the Microsoft guy there, like, see, that would have been something I pulled because I liked the composition, right? And then the painting that came out of that, it looks nothing like it except for, the composition, or my version of it. The sketches, the inspiration, none of it ever ends up. Oh, and see the room that we're in, that's the garden there. The room that we're in now is below ground level. So the window is like exactly level with the ground, which is where the garden is. So I'm right outside my garden window. So I can see the hummingbirds and the bees and everybody that comes to visit the garden. And so
it looks like we just saw some of your.
Yeah, those are the covers.
It looks like that's where you store a lot of your paper.
And I'm showing off of how organized I am. It took a long time before I had them in boxes. They used to be just in one giant rodeo trunk that I had to take everything out of the trunk every time I started. So doesn't he look like Leon Talley? I didn't mean him to, but he kind of ended up looking like him. So in both of those pieces, I combine the plinth that's back there with the head on it. Those were from etchings like that I'd gotten 20 years ago of what was the Herculaneum, of what they were digging up in Herculaneum. And so I have a little tiny anvil that I can smash things out on for the metal constructions. That one's called Grudge Match, the one with looks like two sperms with brains inside of them. Those are slices of brains inside the sperm. That's a tripod that I haven't figured out see that one there with a rocking chair? The picture I showed you of the Microsoft CEO there that was hanging on the wall, that ended up being that. So you never know when, like every time I try not to be shooting fish in a barrel. Like once I think that if I'm working on a series and I get too comfortable with it, then I just stop and do a 90-degree turn and go someplace else because once I think I know what I'm doing, then I'm not learning anything anymore. So, and then I'll switch over to the next thing. I'll go back and forth between, like, you'll see some of the more abstract ones. I'm going there because I'm trying to like teach myself about composition and then the composition. So this room you're in now is the office. And these are all dark skies. So all three rooms are hung with the dark skies. And then the front room where I was working is just what I'm working on now. And then there's another room that has the press and all the etchings in it, but we're not going to go there today because I figured it would just be too much. So that's Walking Mother there, there's Sparrow. And then
if we maybe stop right here and take a look. So one of the questions that has come up, and we've talked about this before as well, is explain the in many of the paintings we see the fingers and the hands, and they're accentuated, and there's a theme that they really stand out.
Well, I told you before, I'm showing off because I never used to be able to paint. So that's part of it. But also I'm always trying to never be ham-fisted or didactic or make it like, oh, here, this is a picture of this. So and it's the way sort of I learned about paintings. I didn't really know about paintings. I didn't know about religion. And I would go to museums and I'd see the paintings, and there were always the religious paintings, and people would have mysterious finger gestures, and they'd be tortured, and so it seemed like some kind of code to some kind of story that I had to make up my own story. So the hands are part of the story. And I can make them just like the eye, just like the eye, I can make them say disparate things.
Well, and the titles, talk a little bit about your titles. We had a comment come in that, as Bill was looking through the catalog of Dark Skies, without any context like today. So really going through, looking at the images of your artwork and reading the titles, it really helped him understand a little bit of the, where you were going. So tell us a little bit about that the titles. It's always interesting to hear from artists in terms of that portion.
It's all over the place. So sometimes while I'm painting it, I know what the title is going to be. And sometimes I'll go through, 2 or 3 different titles on my, like the one that's in back of me now, Annunciation. I think it had 4 different titles because I try not to be too specific. And then lots of times it's because I make a title that cracks me up. Like I think I'm really funny. And so sometimes I'll do a title like for a joke because I think it's funny. And then I realize, wait a minute, it's like it makes it too much like that's what the painting means. So I try to leave them a little ambivalent. But I can't resist a good joke, so.
And there's another question that came in, and we can continue the tour as you maybe answer this one, but it appears to be that that same figure appears in many of your paintings. And can you talk about that? So a similarity.
Yeah, the face. Well, so it depends on where you start. So when I was 5 or 6, I had this great aunt. She was a fairy tale aunt, and she traveled the world and she translated fairy tales from different languages, and I was her guinea pig. And she sent me books and magazines, and she sent me National Geographic. And one day I was looking through the National Geographic, and so I'm 5, right? So I still have and I'm a kid with a pug nose and freckles, but that wasn't all kids look like that, right? So I saw this woman there. I opened the National Geographic, and there was a full page portrait of this Bedouin tribeswoman, and in profile, and she had this beautiful hook nose, and I just like baby duck imprinted on that, and I was like, that's what I want to look like when I grow up. And because I had a space between my teeth, my mother had told me if I pushed my teeth in every night, then I wouldn't have to get braces. But I liked my teeth just fine, but I didn't like my nose because it was too short. So I would pull my nose every night so I could look like the Bedouin tribeswoman, and of course that didn't work. And then when I was 16, I went to a party and I saw this guy across the room that had a nose like the Bedouin tribeswoman, and I grabbed my girlfriend Mary and I said, see that guy across the room with a big nose? I'm going to marry him. So that's my husband.
Well, I loved meeting your husband when he came. So
doesn't he have a nice nose? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Julie, what a wonderful tour through your studio, and hearing you talk. Not only this, the second time that we get to hear about you, your process, your artwork, but especially this new virtual exhibition, Dark Skies. And so, what is your gardening like? Since you mentioned it as part of your paintings, and that came in from Sharon.
Oh, so if you're a gardener, you might remember there was a book when you were a kid called The Secret Garden. Do you know what I'm talking about? So I lusted after having a garden with a garden wall. I mean, I've always gardened, but when we got here and we built the house, I got this load of rocks, and we built a garden with a high garden wall. So I have the garden of my dreams, and that's also I've been building brick paths out in it, brick and rock paths, and we just built this. It's not really a fountain, but it's a faucets on either side, but it's called the Sin Fountain because Dehanus bricks. If you cut the brick in half and turn it upside down, it says sin, sin, sin. So I made this big round fountain with all the bricks say sin, but because if you read it in English, it would be the sin fountain. But if you had it half in Spanish, then it would be sin, sin. So then it would be without sin fountain. So anyway, so that's what I do I just love to garden. And out here, we have javelina. And so I plant watermelons, and the javelina is like rain to watermelons. And the pink snake that's in the painting where the snake isn't pink yet, with the yellow background. So those pink snakes, they get up to about 7 feet long, and they like to take naps inside the tomato cages. So, and they're not poison, but they bite really hard. So the garden is a place of wonder and danger.
Well, and that's another question that came up was what you're working on now, but that's that pink snake that we saw in progress in your studio.
Yeah, I'm working on in what it is yellow background. So the painting bats that you see there, that was me starting to learn yellow. Yellow is really hard to have for a background, and so I did the one with the yellow and the grays and the sepias to make it like a little bit easier, and then I'm going to step up the degree of difficulty with the snakes and add one color, and then I'm going to see if I can keep going to learn more about yellow.
And a big thank you for Julie. We've hit the top of the hour again. And loved touring your studio, seeing your space both outside and inside, but hearing from you, Julie. You challenge each of us in new ways, not only as we walk through this, the dark skies, but seeing you continue to learn and challenge yourself and experiment is uplifting. And we thank you for sharing your world with us. And I thank each of you on Curated Cribs this evening for your continued support and advocacy and care for the museum. We are open on Fridays and Saturdays 10 to 5 and Sundays 12 to 5. We have a number of new exhibitions up. Would love to have you come in or on virtually as you're joining us today. We have a number of offerings in the virtual world as well. And this has been able to lead us to Marfa, Texas, to spend this hour with Julie Speed. And Julie, again, thank you for bringing, your exhibition through Patrick to the museum last year, and for you coming to the Taubman. We're going to go ahead and round out this hour with the Dark Skies, the virtual exhibition. It's a 17-minute video that Julie has created to share with us. It's set to music, 3 songs, which, I love. It's so powerful. The names of the songs are A Cool Wind Blowing, Your Strong Mind, and I Will Not Be Sad in This World, with 47 paintings that Julie has shared with us. Julie.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was really, I love the Taubman. Thank you. Thank you all.